welcome to another episode of the iAlpha project. My name is Pedro Ralvis, and I'm so glad you joined me today. I wanted to share a story with you that has to do with the lighthouse, and I'm pretty sure the title of this podcast got you a bit by surprise, like, what the fuck is he talking about? Be the lighthouse, create your own lighthouse. So the reference with that comes from a podcast that I was watching with Sean Whalen. If you guys don't know who he is, just follow him. I'm a big fan of his. He's very focused on personal development, especially men focused in today's society. I was watching one of his podcasts, and the biggest piece of advice that he shared that he got from his mentor was be the lighthouse. And he goes on to explaining that his mentor went up to him and said to him, mate, you're a tugboat. You're helping everybody. And that's the thing. He's like, you're going to each individual person and you're trying to get them to change. You're trying to get them to move, but nothing's happening. You can only control someone so far. But the thing about a tugboat and a lighthouse, they both have the same job, correct? Like the lighthouse is there to protect boats from crashing, and a tugboat is just to keep boats moving as well. So they both have the same job, but do it in a different way. The tugboat has to individually go up to each single boat and help them. It will either take supplies, pull supplies, push and pull and tug and do everything else it needs for that one boat. And more often than not, it's going to continue doing that for a long period of time, his whole life. And then what happens to a tugboat? It dies by itself in an old junkyard somewhere. A lighthouse has the exact same job, but its only job is to be the lighthouse. It doesn't do anything else. It's just standing there. So what happens when a boat goes and crashes against the rocks? Nothing. The lighthouse stays there. It did its job. It was the lighthouse. Now it's up to that person to make the changes or avoid the rocks. It's up to the captain. What happens when a boat doesn't crash and it's thankful to the lighthouse? Nothing. The lighthouse continues being a lighthouse. So the purpose of the story, it goes on to saying, just be the lighthouse. Just set the example and continue to set the example regardless of what's happening around you. If you break from that to try and help other people, you're slowing yourself down. So at the end of the day, the best way we can help is by setting the example with ourselves. I really love this. This has made a huge difference to me, especially in certain stressful moments, right? It's very easy to set the example when we're in the right frame of mind and we're calm and collected. But when we lose ourselves emotionally, it's very hard to create that structure. So more often than not, we want to behave in a certain way, which I often call a reactive process to the emotion, but it doesn't serve us. It's coming from an underlying program in our subconscious. So being the lighthouse was a really good trigger for me in so many different situations. When I find I'm conflicted about which action to take or how to respond to something, my brain just goes, be the lighthouse. And straight away, I look at the scenario externally. So from that, I'm looking at how would I want to behave regardless of my emotions in this context? What would I want to achieve? It's very hard to separate ourselves from our emotions, but sometimes saying be the lighthouse really, really makes a difference in creating that awareness so that we can create that disconnect so we can make decisions and choices that better suit us and not so much our reactive personalities. Being the lighthouse is something about being consistent, being present, doing your job, and staying focused in the job that you have, and not necessarily running around every single person trying to change their aspects. Realistically, people learn through watching. So sometimes setting the example is a much better medium of teaching that and showing someone how to behave as opposed to telling them how they should behave. Now we can all turn around and say, great, I want to be the lighthouse. I want to be focused on myself. I want to grow. I want to develop. I want to help others. So I'm going to be the lighthouse and set the example. So rather than focusing on each individual person to make the difference, I focus on myself and setting that example. The problem that lies with that is when you're doing this, especially at a mature age, we have an idea of who we want to be. We kind of have an idea of who we are, but we're not aware that a lot of our personality and our self-identification comes from learned behavior, comes from role modeling, and comes from other people's opinions, especially when you're a lot younger and you're learning how to navigate your way in this world. When you want to be the lighthouse, it comes back from a place of trying to figure out what is your essence, what is your truth, what is important to you. And we can often say love, loyalty, honesty, integrity, I mean, these are all character traits. You could say it's a creed of a way of life and a way of being. But we also want to find strength with gentleness, assertiveness with compassion. There has to be balance in everything that we do. So for me personally, I identify very strongly with love. I feel that love is everything and the essence of everything. So all I have to do is be the lighthouse and be a beacon of love, I guess. So I can say I'm going to shine my love outward for everybody else. But that light has to come from inside. So how am I going to project the light out there if I don't know my own light inside? So the first process of being a lighthouse is actually taking awareness of that. So it goes back into being introspective and having a look about what is it that fulfills you? What is it that gives you a sense of purpose? And I'm not talking about a job or an action. I'm talking about what feeling lets you know that you are living your purpose. What does that feel like to you? And more often than not, I've heard it being described as very peaceful. When you are confident in what you are doing and you're confident in your processes and you're comfortable being uncomfortable, then everything seems to flow with better ease. The most interesting part about this, and this will be the next follow-up podcast that I'll be sharing with you, is based on a book by Dr. Bruce Lipton. It's The Biology of Belief, but predominantly his new book, The Wisdom of Yourselves. And it breaks down this concept to a cellular form as science and biologically based studies and evidence research that actually talks and shares about how we function 95% to like 99% from our subconscious. We are so unaware of what we were doing. We believe we are conscious in our own thoughts, our own beliefs, but more often than not, we are functioning on autopilot at the same time. The best thing that it describes is if you take a car ride and you do a 20-minute trip, chances are you're not going to remember every little thing about that car ride, the changing the gears, putting the indicator on, braking, which cars were around you, how many lights you stopped at. I mean, everything we do tends to come in autopilot, and that's how we drive. Especially if I've got somebody else in the car with me having a conversation, I could probably recall the conversation better than I could the action of driving the car from one place to the other, because we are functioning from a subconscious place. Now, that's a really good example because it also shows us that a lot of times we think we're in control of our reactive behaviors, but we're not. A lot of times they've already preempted the function in our bodies. So it's like you hit a confrontation or you hit a stressful situation and you think you're in control, but your body has already started responding to that situation before you are aware of it. So as much time as we can spend in our cognitive minds thinking about the changes we would like to make in ourselves in order to be the lighthouse, in order to set that example, it can be very, very difficult, especially when we're constantly losing ourselves to the emotion. So I think this is a great exercise, firstly, to make us aware of that disconnect between our conscious and our unconscious, and then the realization that if we have to make any changes, it has to be to the subconscious programming that's installed. So next time you find yourself in a situation where you're reactive, uncontrolled, you feel wrongly done by, feel attacked, offended, abused, rather than projecting externally, go back internally to become the lighthouse. So what I do first is I reflect the emotions that I'm feeling. So this is the context that I'm in. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm upset. And rather than trying to come up with reasons as to why I'm feeling those things initially, I just go straight to the feeling. What does the anger feel like? What does the frustration feel like? What's it doing to my thought patterns? I don't look for reasons as to why I feel a certain way. I just look into what do those feelings feel like and how are they controlling my next response. Just by doing that, I've created a little gap and a little stop in the way my body was going to react. So there might not be too much of a change, but a small change is better than no change. And just like the slight edge principle, if we do small incremental 1% changes every single time, then over time we will get a lot better at reprogramming our subconscious. So I will explain a lot more in depth with that in our next podcast, just how our brain works, how the cells function, and how our programming has been pre-downloaded in our early years. So moving forward, how can we change that to find our inner peace? And a lot of times we try and think that if things around us get better, we will be better. There's a lot of evidence-based research that actually shows that the environment is the determining factor into how an organism or cell responds, not the other way around. Albert Einstein said that the environment is the sole dictator of what the particle does, meaning that it's the perceived information that that particle gets from the environment that chooses how it's going to respond or react. And the blueprint or the manual or the DNA, whatever you want to call it, of the actual cell is like a pre-downloaded system of what the response needs to be in that situation. So it just goes straight back to that and offers the downloaded response. So the only way we can change our responses is by reprogramming the subconscious, putting in a new program that offers a new result. That little stimulus or trigger gets into your environment. So if that's making any sense to you, these are the slight steps that we take. Is A, once we feel the stimulus, or the stimulus meaning what will cause the affect or effect. That could be, for example, being called into your boss's office for a meeting. We automatically get this response and we think, yep, I'm in trouble. I'm going to get scolded. What did I do wrong? It's an automatic response. For some people, it might be, oh, great, the promotion's coming. I'm going to get that. We have a preemptive idea rather than just being in the moment. So the moment I feel that sort of nervousness about being called into my boss's office, when I actually get to the office, what happens when I'm talking to my boss? My energy is being affected. I might be more defensive, more controlled, more aware. I'm not being my true, authentic self. In essence, I'm not being the lighthouse. I'm not setting the example. So how I want to be in a situation like that is completely confident and excited to have the opportunity to talk to my boss and have a few moments of brainstorming and being open to the environment. So the moment I show up at the office, my energy and my demeanor is going to be slightly different. If my boss scolds me and has a go at me for something that I may or may not have done, again, how am I going to respond to that situation? Rather than worrying about how he could have better delivered his message and how his message has affected me, I just worry about the actual effect it's having. How am I feeling? What is it doing to me? Not why am I feeling like that? It's just, whoa, I'm feeling like this. Is this how I want to feel? No, it's not. I don't want to feel attacked. I don't want to feel pressured. So my response to that, if I react to that feeling, I'm going to respond back with the same energy. So what I do then is I go, this is not how I want to be feeling. I want to feel confident and secure in my job. I am confident and secure in my job. So when I respond with my rebuttal, it's coming from a place of confidence and sharing as opposed to justifying and explaining. I hope that makes some sort of sense. It's a very long-going process, but it made a world of difference to me. So from now on, guys, I encourage you all just to be the lighthouse, be the shining example of how you want to be treated, and you treating others regardless of how the environment is affecting you. And then as you progress, you will then be able to see that your responses in turn affect the environment. So one of my biggest pet peeves, and I see this across the board, is when people say, I'll just match the energy I'm given. You do this for me, then I'll do that for you. You treat me like this, and I'll treat you like that. You don't even have to try to do that because energy is flowing. Like waves amplify each other, opposite waves cancel each other out. So really what you're doing is you're relinquishing control to somebody else's energy, and you saying you will respond the way they respond. So you're relinquishing control. You're saying, I'm just pretty much going to do what you do, and I'm not going to think about it. So nothing will change from that. I have a different way. My energy is my energy, and I will stay in control of my energy and manage my energy and flow with my energy. Now, being in control isn't absolute. It's like a surfer. You ride the wave and you flow with the wave as best as you can. You cannot dictate to go a certain direction if that wave won't allow it. You have to be in control while riding the wave. You flow along with it, not against it. And this is the same thing about finding control, is learning to flow with the situation rather than fighting against it, but being in a calm place, especially mentally, so that you can attract the right things for you as well as the appropriate responses. So go on, guys, be the lighthouse, be a shining example. And I look forward to speaking to you all in the next episode where I go much more in depth into a biological and science based way on how this actually works.